Welcome back to another episode of Embracing Magic. We are doing a very special episode in a new location. This is the Haunted Bookshop in Bristol. We're very excited to be here today with a very special guest called Francesca Way, who we'll get back to in a second. This podcast is all about candid conversations about witchcraft, very honest conversations between Steph and I, and also occasionally with lovely guests. And this place is quite literally thick with stories, being a bookshop, and it's very exciting to be here and to get to spend a little bit of time with another witch. You call yourself a witch, don't you, and a magician?
Totally, yes. 100%.
Yeah? Is that central to your practice, witchcraft?
Totally, yeah. And magic.
Amazing. And we are going to specifically be talking today about occultism, which is something that we haven't really ever spoken about before, is it? And there's particularly, I think, the intersection between witchcraft and occultism, because they're often seen as separate, but actually through history there is so much intertwined, isn't there, with like high witchcraft and ceremonial work and sex witchcraft and all of that amazing stuff around the mad Aleister Crowley. I'm from Hastings, so obviously Aleister Crowley lived there for a long time. And there was like some really interesting folklore around how if you came from Hastings, you weren't actually able to leave there unless you had a pebble from the beach in your pocket. So there are loads of stones off the beach in my jacket pockets.
You didn't tell me that when I came to visit
you. Probably got one in there somewhere. You've probably got a hagstone somewhere in your pocket.
Not from Hastings.
But you're not from Hastings, so you're
true.
okay.
So
fine. He wasn't a very loved man, though, in Hastings. He was called the Beast of Hastings. He spent quite a lot of his life on heroin. So
that's probably why. Not a good look.
So in this episode, we'll talk about the often misunderstood intersection between the occult and witchcraft, and the role of secrecy and initiation, and the potency of personal alchemy, I guess. Would you call yourself an alchemist?
I guess yes. I don't deliberately work with alchemy, but it's very much embedded in the other things that I practice, so why not?
I love the word alchemy.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know why. This just sounds really mystical, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've named one of my incense Dream Alchemy. So I love it. It's a great word.
It's so fluid, isn't it? And with dream involved as well, it's just like lots of movement.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I love dream communion work. That's something that I'm trying to like move into at the moment, because I love like analysing dreams and pulling them apart. It's a bit of my own alchemy going on. I'm going to throw you into a bit of a big question, if that's okay.
Ooh, go for it.
Because I think a lot of people don't really know what occultism is. And so, we're often asked what witchcraft means to us, and that can change for everyone. But for you, what does occultism mean to you, and how does that work into your practice?
Yeah, sure. So this is probably going to be quite a long answer, so
that's
just
okay.
feel free to interject at any point. But occultism, essentially the word occultism means like hidden secret or like hidden message, and that's connected to like the mystical and esoteric and like supernatural elements in life. And it also refers to like the use of magic as well. So like it covers areas such as like astrology, tarot, alchemy, ceremonial magic, all of that kind of good stuff. And also you kind of see it pop up a lot in like popular culture. So like in books and film, like A Devil Rides Out, that's like one of my favourite Hammer horror films. That was originally a book by Dennis Wheatley. And it's kind of about, it stars Christopher Lee, who's like one of my favourite actors of all time. I don't know about you. It basically is about a sort of satanic sect that are sort of like throwing shade at like another group. And then the Duke and his allies have to get together and like use occult symbols and like ritual to like protect themselves and to like protect humanity, like that kind of thing. It's in the 1960s. This is also why I'm dressed like I am today, as like a bit of a homage, because I absolutely love film. I'm a filmmaker, so all of that stuff is all embedded. I feel like we're letting down
the team here.
I feel like we're not in our ceremonial
gear. Can you lend us a cape or something?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, you know where to find me. I'm going to be in Frome the next few days, so if you want some vintage clothes, Coven Vintage Collective, come down.
That's a dangerous invitation.
Yeah. And also music as well. So I love like bands like Killing Joke. I love like heavy metal music. It just like that symbology comes up a lot. And it looks very like satanic, but actually when you kind of like get more involved in the community and you kind of look closer into the symbols, it's actually like not what you think it is. And everyone's like not necessarily like practicing Satanists. It's more about like anti-establishment, like anti-religion, like it's more of like the sort of punk rock attitude. So I think like it's a bit of a misunderstood scene, but I think that's what they're essentially trying to do. They're trying to sort of break down some boundaries, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's the same with witchcraft as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
another misunderstood thing that we're trying to break down the barriers of. By doing this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And doing it successfully, I would say, as well. But yeah, it also shows up like in our like everyday, like within like corporations logos, like everyday logos and branding, like Starbucks, the goddess Melusine, she shows up, and that's everywhere. And also the what's it called, the caduceus, which is used in like for pharmaceutical companies and like medicinal brands. I think that kind of goes back to like way back when we'd go to see like a cunning man or like, you know, the wise folk to help like heal our ailments. Like magic, science, medicine was all like intertwined. But you know, in modern day we've kind of like stripped magic out of a lot of things. So I guess like the work that we're all doing here is like really important because we're like kind of bringing it back. And we're having an occult revival right now. So it's a really important time. And podcasts like this are really going to help spread the message. So yeah, I think what you guys are doing is really cool.
Aww. I think what you're doing is really
cool. Let's be friends. But yeah, so I essentially believe that this is like a sort of language that our ancestors have left behind for us to sort of like learn to sort of like decipher and learn to like interpret. So it's like a universal code of like consciousness. So when we learn to start like interpreting and deciphering the meanings behind those symbols, we in turn then find like sort of spiritual advancement, and like we can find ourselves sort of like sort of evolving because our subconscious mind gets used to interpreting stuff. So it starts learning to work in that way. It's like alchemy. So our subconscious mind is like sort of like alchemizing all of that information. And I feel like then the world and the universe starts to, open itself up to us in this really like more magical and mystical way. So I kind of feel like we believe in magic because we see magic happen, we create it. But a lot of people don't believe in magic because they're not creating it. So why would they ever see like those results? But then sometimes that can happen, like freak accident. They can have like an out-of-body experience and then that sort of restores their faith.
Do you think also they're like just not really aware of the magic in their everyday life?
Totally. Well? Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the reclaiming of magic in this modern world is really noticing what is around you. And I think a lot of people are just kind of shut off to it. Yeah,
for sure. I think as well with the advancement of technology, we're so attached to like our smartphones and stuff, and that's really helpful. You know, you can just look up anything to do with like magic and occultism, like it's made it so easy to find all these sacred texts on there. It's made it much harder to meditate, like the really simple thing of just like completely switching off.
Yeah.
So anyone who is able to hold down a very dedicated meditation practice, like I salute you. That's hard. It's really hard just to go back to nothing.
Not even just because of the, you know, being attached to your phone, but even from my perspective, like even the EMF that's coming off everything all the time. We're being bombarded by internet and satellites and stuff like that. And it's just like constantly having something tapping you, being like, attention over here. And you're like, how are you supposed to center yourself and find inner peace when you're just constantly being bombarded?
Exactly. Yeah. Especially as like sensitive people, I feel like, you know, sort of sensitive folk, I feel like we're like very highly attuned, and that's why we get into this stuff. Yeah. So we can feel those things a lot more. So it does like, it does affect us, I think.
Definitely.
But that's where your lovely tourmaline ring is really helpful.
Oh, I know, I'm literally holding it right now. I'm like, soothe me.
It's like absorbing everything.
I'm definitely very drawn to like the tourmaline, the obsidian.
I think I've got
bracelet.
Nice.
We're ready to be grounded for this conversation. Just like from a sort of slightly juxtaposition, what would you have said occultism meant to you, or what were your perceptions of occultism?
probably everything Aleister Crowley related, like the Golden Dawn and all of that sort of stuff, and probably Satanism and everything like that. But I don't have a huge understanding of occultism, really. So that's why this conversation is very interesting.
I guess, and that's probably how a lot of our listeners will feel. So I think a lot of them will think that it's kind of, maleficent spirits and, Satanism and, men leading covens and then actually just like sexually taking advantage of women. What do you think you could share with those people about what occultism actually is? I know you've kind of like taken us through what your sort of perception of it is and your practice and everything, but what would you say to those people that think it is inherently evil?
I think that does play a small portion. I'm not going to sit here and like paint a really fluffy picture about it. The reason why we practice this stuff is because it is a bit scary. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. It's for a specific type of person. You don't have to do it. You can be anything. There's so many things. You can practice paganism. You can practice, something quite new age. You can practice witchcraft. You can practice something that you feel comfortable doing. Some of us just want something a bit more spicy in life. And I don't want to.
Tony is raising her hand.
Metal music, folk horror films, like Victorian ghost stories. Yes.
You two are going to be the best mates.
Yay!
Whereas I suppose I'm not. I don't.
You dabble.
Yeah, I'm a dabbler, but I don't lean too much into that sort of side of things, I suppose. But I think learning more about it and having more of awareness about it is helping me understand it a little bit more and how that fits in with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I've always been really interested in occultism, and it's actually one of the reasons why I was drawn to Hastings. There's definitely a feeling there. I arrived and Jack and the Green was happening, and I was like, my people. I've said this before on the podcast. There's lots of goths walking around and pagans and like, dressed up like bushes and flowers.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes, finally, I'm with my community. But, from my perspective, the reason why I'm drawn to metal and like horror movies and everything like that is there's a real kind of like primordial feeling of around being, creating fear or being afraid. Like it's like a core feeling, really, like hunger is, or sex, lust or whatever.
Yeah.
And for me, it's almost like taking us back to that like caveman, cavewoman, sort of like days of like stomping around a fire and, like hunting and, just, I don't know, it feels really ancient. There's something really ancient about it. And also there is definitely like a dopamine hit from being scared. Like your endorphins go.
Yeah.
Although it is, I'm finding myself much more desensitized to it now. Like I'm not feeling.
I mean, you are a death witch.
Yeah. I mean, I was scared when we went to Burley and we were in that house.
Yeah.
We said, because you watched the episode, didn't you? When we went to, so we were staying in this like 14th century thatched property, and we arrived and we were like, oh, this is amazing. It's so spooky and awesome. I was terrified. I felt like I was being watched constantly. Okay. We even tried to do an episode in one of the rooms, and I just felt like I had like lots of eyes on me. And even I ended up sharing a room with Lizzie because I didn't want to sleep in a room on my own. And I think she was actually secretly quite happy about that too. And, but there was a seat next to me and I felt like someone was sat next to me and I could not sleep at all. It was really, and I like being scared, and I'm not normally uncomfortable in situations like that. Like I've just spent the last 5 weeks my house is quite spooky. It's Edwardian. And, my husband's been on tour in America and I've been there for 5 weeks on my own. Fine.
Yeah.
But for some reason in that cottage, I was deeply unsettled.
Yeah.
And I'm someone that likes to connect with spirits and, receive messages and stuff like that. And it was not.
Have you done any like spooky ceremonies or anything like that?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, there's so much to feed off from what you've just said. But a few things stuck with me. And it's like, if you walked into a room full of strangers, you might feel a little bit intimidated because you don't know who they are. They might be nice, but you don't know. It's a bit scary sometimes. And it could just be that they are like malevolent forces. Like if you feel that, then
true.
I wouldn't say that it felt like it was is malevolent the word. Did I say maleficent before?
I Actually, I think we
did say malevolent.
I think that might have been a while ago. I might just be grouping everything together. Who knows?
I'm not sure that I felt like it was like evil. I think for me, the overwhelming feeling I have when I go into spaces like that where I feel comfortable is like trapped trauma, like trapped, or even like spirits that are not able to move on, that want to, or want to communicate when you're in a space that you're not ready to communicate in. It's not necessarily like I have walked into places that feel bad before. You know, I think most people, even if they can't really from like a conscious level understand why that's happening, there's a sort of like an inner knowing that an area is not good. You know, I remember like my husband and I, when we went on our honeymoon, we went into a catacombs, and I walked into the catacombs and immediately felt like I was going to be sick, like straight away. And I was like, this is not good. Something not good has happened here. So yeah, I'm not sure that I necessarily felt like it was like evil or bad, and equally I couldn't tell you that I walked in and just felt like there was a bunch of people that I didn't know there. It just felt like it was an energy that wasn't supposed to be there, that needed to be moved on. And I was like not in a grounded space to deal with it.
Yeah.
Interesting. We were all a little bit heightened, weren't we?
Yeah.
You know, every time Stevie and I walked into the kitchen, all the cupboards were open.
Yeah.
And we were like, what is going on? What are you trying to say to me? Have you lost the spatula? I don't know. I was like, all the cupboards were open, and we were like shutting all the cupboards.
I haven't eaten in years. Someone please buy me a sandwich.
I know. I mean, it was lacking in some real like important supplies in there, wasn't it? No olive oil, there was no salt. But yeah, I don't know. There was just something about this house. I could not sleep in it at all. I was really unsettled, wasn't I?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like after a little while, they may have like, I don't know, the energy might have calmed down a little bit. I used to work at the College of Psychic Studies in London. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's been around for like the past 100 years. And it was like an established place in South Kensington, which people can go and they can learn about spiritualism. They can learn how to do psychic and mediumistic readings, and learn various different topics on occultism and magic and things like that. And so there was a lot of energy. And when I first started working there, I got the keys and I was locking up at night. And at first I did feel a bit like uncomfortable, but literally after a week, I feel like we, you know, made our presences known and it was totally fine. I never had any kind of like weird or bad feelings. I just feel like there's that initial, like, we need to form some kind of relationship because I'm not sure who you are. And, you know, there's that, it's being mirrored. But I would say as well, I do work with spirits. It's like a big part of my practice. I find them to be quite helpful. But in my personal space, and I think this is why you were saying, Tony, that, you know, in your home, like you're totally fine with it, you know, being a little bit spooky, or you feel quite comfortable with whatever spirits are there. And that's because we should only really let into our personal space spirits that are going to be helpful. It's like having a unhelpful human being in the house. Will want to get rid of them like as soon as possible.
An unwanted roommate.
Exactly. It's the same with spirits. You know, it's really good that we are learning to sort of like ground and protect ourselves, and like as soon as something feels a bit weird, banish it immediately. We don't have to keep anything there that's making us feel uncomfortable. But yeah, if we're in like a space that we've never been to before, it's a bit like, what is this? Who are you? So yeah, it's a bit of a dance, I guess.
I feel like really, really drawn to ask you about smoke cleansing. I don't know why. I feel like really against smoke cleansing spirits out of spaces. And it's kind of keeps coming up for me. Like it's something that I've really realized how I feel about it. And then people will ask me questions and they'll ask my advice and then I'll advise them and they'll completely ignore it, which I find really frustrating. But I just feel like in old buildings, you know, we don't own these spaces.
It's true.
You know, and these spaces have existed, you know, much longer than our lifespan. And they have the right to hold the energy of all the life forms that have existed in them, you know, since day one. Like you would have with a burial ground, you know, sometimes a lot of time in America, they like move all the headstones and then they build like, you know, buildings on top of burial grounds and stuff like that. And then try and force spirits out and stuff. It's just so, this is the place of rest. But, you know, with the growth of like spiritualism, witchcraft, occultism, so is the sort of like misunderstanding around smudging, which we you know, Steph and I don't use as part of our practice because it's you know, closed practice Native American thing. We don't use sage, we don't use white sage. But people are just like smoke cleansing their houses and spaces left, right, and center without any sort of like regard for the life forms that have existed in the houses and the history and the relationships they forged and the community that they had in that spaces. And even like the sad energy and the happy energy, they're just trying to force them out and be like, this is my space now, and you don't belong in it. How do you feel about smoke cleansing? Well,
also I was going to mention the spirits that will be protecting the herb, the spirit of the herb itself, of the sage herb. You know, we don't fully have a relationship with those things. It's not part of our culture. So yeah, that's the first step really, is understanding what you're using.
That's sorry to interrupt you, but I hadn't even thought about that. That's such a beautiful point.
Well, yeah, really beautiful point what you made as well. I hadn't quite thought of it like that either. So yeah, it does make me feel deeply uncomfortable, but that's why I am very much interested in the Western ceremonial tradition, because this is like this is our Western practice. This is what like a lot of people in London would have been practicing over the past, you know, 100 to 500 years ago. So I feel like much more comfortable, although we can go even further than that and say that this is a kind of like amalgamation of things that have come from Judaism, Hinduism, you know, it's all coming from all of those, like, you know, very early sacred texts. I don't believe like it just emerges on its own. It's all coming from ideas. It's all being birthed from old ideas into new interpretations. So yeah, my thoughts on smudging is that I feel like you should only be using the smoke of something that is something connected to your practice and connected to your culture and something you feel comfortable using. I think like because sage, like white sage, has become so popular to use, I think we know what it is, but we don't. I would recommend frankincense. Like that.
Love frankincense.
That is like that's part of our culture. That's used in churches. It's something that you know, even if you're not religious, it's something that, you know, can be quite helpful to use.
I'm going through a real like. I remember our first ever episode. I was like, because I got raised Catholic. And first ever episode, I was like saying how much I, you know, really disliked Catholicism. And now, because I'm going down a bit of a folk magic route connected to my Mediterranean roots and kind of connecting with my ancestors who were all Catholics and raised in such a heavily Catholic country, and trying to make sense of folk Catholicism. And now I'm feeling a little bit more connected to various aspects of the kind of
the ritual side
side of it, the ceremonial side, but also really cool. You know, really diving into the Marys and their in very interesting stories about them being perhaps priestesses and you're nodding like you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you do.
I can see the fire just growing inside you, and
I'm unpicking all of this stuff in my head, trying to remake sense of it in a different way that's not being taught. So I can't remember why I'm talking about this.
Because you're revisiting Catholicism, you know. You abandoned it and then you sort of come back to it.
But obviously I don't identify as a Catholic, and I will never be a Catholic. But
you connect with those ancient parts of yourself that have been passed down.
But it's trying to make sense of that, you know.
And we share, I don't know if you classified it as a trauma, but we share a similar, I consider this one of my first traumas, aside from like actually being born. It's like, take me back to the womb. Aside from that, I had a really disturbing baptism by a Catholic priest.
Really?
Really, yeah. So when I heard your story, I was like, no way. When I went into the ceremony, so he had like, there were so many babies being baptized that day. There was just like rows and rows of families. They're just doing it like in batch.
Or like queuing.
We were like just all sat down in rows. And he was like calling us up one by one. So then it was my mum's turn.
Do you have a Catholic background?
My mum was raised a Catholic, and my grandparents were like highly Catholic, like very strict Catholic. But my mum, like from the age of 13, sort of denounced it, but she was just sort of like keeping up the motions of it, I guess. And yeah, so it's my turn. My mum takes me up, and I remember this so clearly, and I was 1 year old, because it was so traumatic.
Wow.
And I've got a terrible memory as well, but this is like so in me. He starts to kind of like scoop up the water in this shell, and he's pouring it over my entire face over and over again.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I'm basically drowning.
Like waterboarding you with a bloody
I know,
shell.
right? And I was just thinking about this today. I was like, oh my gosh, we share the same trauma. And then I was thinking, I'm going on this Embracing Magick podcast with two witches, and I was like, that it just takes me back to when, you know, the women's Holocaust, when all the women are being drowned for practicing witchcraft, which a lot of them weren't or were. We never will know. But it's sort of like connected me back to that sort of other ancestral trauma as well that we all kind of have collectively had to go through, like half the population, I guess.
It's also very healing though, isn't it, to be able to come back into the space and be able to like own the word witch and be able to talk about it openly and be able to talk about our practice without facing any kind of some prejudice, but not much. I mean, we've got a little bit on the YouTube recently.
Someone said like to stop bringing negativity by using the word witch, and I was like,
"Who's negative, mate? Not us. We're enchanting."
How can you? I mean, they obviously haven't watched all of our episodes, but how can you say that? Like, it's such a reclaiming, isn't it? And making, you know, that all that horrible thing that happened in our history, and you know, bringing their names back to life, kind of in a way, you know, bringing them back to life. Don't know how else to explain it.
They didn't die in vain, you know? And,
exactly.
But we're still dealing with the repercussions of all of that. Even between, you know, woman to woman, we're still dealing with all the repercussions there. So that's just some silly, ignorant comment, I'm afraid. There ain't no negativity here. A little bit. A little bit from the death
bit of spice. But yeah.
I don't know why people are so scared of, like, the darkness. Well, I do know it can be incredibly painful, but I think like the more you process it, the more your roots kind of grow into it, and you're just like, oh, I can go there and I can go here, and it's all fine. It's all part of the same thing.
I think the reason is the modern world isn't set up to help us face our trauma or process it. You know, we are in a capitalist society where we're supposed to achieve and, you know, take a salary and, you know, like just keep achieving all the time. And, you know, there's no space for, you know, we were just talking to Liz earlier about that rest is resistance. Was that what the book was called?
Yes.
Yeah, rest is resistance. And how in this modern day, we don't know anything about how to rest because we're always about achieving and earning a lot of money and buying things, you know. We are programmed to buy. A programmed to want things that we can't afford, essentially. That's what all this like borrowing money and, you know, credit cards and Klarna and ClearPay and mess that we all kind of get ourselves into. So this modern world is not set up for us to be able to face those darker parts of ourselves healthily and understand that there's an equilibrium between light and dark, and that is what makes us whole. You know.
Imagine calling up your boss and being like, sorry, I can't come in today, I'm just processing some trauma and going through my shadow work.
I'm just facing my shadow today.
Exactly. It's like, some really cool bosses, some of my bosses would have really understood that.
This
and I would have been like, oh yeah, Monica would be like, all cool. But yeah, I think if, you know, it depends what your environment is, it's a bit tricky.
Let's go back to the more ceremonial aspect, because that's something you're really passionate about, isn't it? Tell us more about that in terms of occultism. I can't even say it now.
And maybe sort of like how you got into it as well, like where it started.
Oh,
if you don't mind.
No, not at all. So my mum used to take me into her tarot readings when I was like 6. So I was always like, it was just always around me. She wasn't a tarot reader, but she'd have tarot cards around, and I was just exposed to it from a very early age. Had like an out of body experience and almost drowned, and there was a few things that happened. And I was also quite highly sensitive as well. I'm a highly sensitive person. So yeah, it was just like in my nature then to kind of like go on this journey. Started off when I was 20. I became a Reiki master, so I kind of started quite early with that. And then I had a few experiences, like I took acid for the first time, and then I was doing yoga, and like just a bunch of had a few like friends who were like sort of dabbling in Wicca, and they'd give me like a candle for my birthday or like a crystal or something like that. And then one day, after like going really into the dark night of the soul for like 6 months, I was like heavily into it, feeling really depressed after I finished university. I just had this moment in the middle of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this experience where I felt this insane amount of bliss, like interconnectedness, oneness, like that everything was going to be okay. And I just like stayed up all night, just like, what the hell has happened? But it was like alchemy again. I feel like all of those practices just helped to sort of decalcify my pineal gland, or just like help me like this was all stuff I was interested in back then. And then, but in more simpler terms, I think I just rose above my egoic suffering prison that I'd created, and like just I managed to sort of like unknot that tangle within myself. And then it was like a whole process of like, whew, okay, now I've experienced that. How do I get back down there again? Okay, and then it's like that dance between like, you know, the underworld and the ether, you know, that So working with that, and then I got my first job in an occult bookshop. Well, it was more of a sort of new age bookshop when I was 24, called Mysteries. It's sadly closed down now, but I used to be on the front desk like booking psychics, and had the spirit of a medium that used to work there speak to me in my ear and tell me the name of a regular client on my like second day. I was like, and I don't really work in that way. I don't really hear spirits like that, but his voice was so strong. I had this connection to him. So it depends on who I'm working with, really. They'll just sort of come to me. But anyway, I had this really insane experience with him, and then when I was meditating a few months later up on the top floor, he came to me, sat down next to me, put his hand on my knee, and I felt all of this healing energy. And I didn't know him. I'd never met him before.
Wow.
But he was like one of the sort of like main mediums who used to work in that shop for quite a few years. So those were like the early like stages where I was like, just
all this stuff was
mind
happening.
just went, like I was just so open, and I was like, okay, I fully believe in this now. And then I started like wanting to create some like real positive change in my life. I say positive because I hadn't quite fully integrated the shadow yet. And I mean, I don't think I'll ever like 100% integrate my shadow, because life brings up other stuff, and that's the beauty of life. But it brings up stuff, and I was kind of just like, going through that little dance and just like uncovering more and more things. And then I discover more of the sort of esoteric stuff. And I heard Aleister Crowley's name, and just diving into his work, Aleister Crowley's Magic and Theory and Practice, everyone gets really scared when they hear his name. A lot of it is rumours that he's written about himself, and he loved it when journalists would write negative things, because any publicity is good publicity, you know.
Don't we know it?
So who knows? But that is a really good foundation for magic. And you don't have to be anything. You don't have to be a Thelemite. You don't have to be a Satanist. You don't have to be anything. You can just read that book, and it's got some good, a good sort of code of conduct in there, and like it just explains things quite clearly. So if you want to start somewhere just more in the occult sort of ceremonial route, like start there. That's a really good book.
Sorry to interrupt you. Did you say Thelemite?
Yeah, like Thelema.
Yeah, Thelema.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So it's one of Crowley's religion, sects that he set up that is actually still going, and right. I think a lot of people feel that that's a lot more successful than some of the other ones that are no longer with us. The OTO is still running, but yeah, I think
they're all sects that he set up.
He set up, yeah, but in modern day, I think a lot of like Thelemites want to like decentralize Crowley from Thelema, because some people, when they get into it, it's like a bit of a fan club, but really it's not. It's like Christianity. It's like a Jesus fan club. Really, his teaching was like, don't worship me. Although I think Crowley would love it. He loves people worshiping him. Yeah, it's quite accessible because it's really popular. So like it's really easy to meet an occultist that's a Thelemite. And actually, the more I go along my journey, the less shy of it I am. But I just don't like labels. I just like to sort of like and just take things from places and feel
whatever resonates with
you. Yeah. But I like going back to the older stuff. So something that Crowley made popular, and I wouldn't have really heard of it unless he had made it so popular. This is why he's quite important, even if you don't agree with him. A lot of like the witchcraft that we can easily access is because of him, because he could go into the British Library and then just start interpreting stuff, and then publish it. He had that power. So like I think we do owe him something. Can't remember what was my train of thought.
And then we were gonna asking about
something older.
Oh yeah, so I like going back to the older grimoires. That is like my passion. I just love like the whole going into a cave and being a hermit and really cutting yourself off from society. I love that. Although part of my journey now is coming back into society and like working as a community. Like that solo stuff has really helped with my practice with others. But I was really interested. I watched a film called The Dark Song, which is by...
love that song.
Yeah.
Love that
film.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. It's a beautiful film.
Yeah. And it's by Liam Gavin, is his name? Yeah, so Liam Gavin made this really incredible film. It came out in 2017. Loads of occultists hate it because they're like, that's not traditional. But so I love it. It's like so it's based on the Abramelin rite, which is made popular by Aleister Crowley, but is like predates it. And I think like this was it's not part of any kind of religion or anything. It's like its own separate thing. But I think it's got links again to like Judaism and all sorts. And yeah, so in A Dark Song, it goes through the Abramelin rite in a really theatrical way. It's not accurate, but I still love it. I really appreciate it. And so I was sort of exposed to it, and then I'd been reading about occulty stuff, and I'd heard about, and then it sort of like was a bit of a missing piece to the puzzle, really. And then we came into lockdown, because I was thinking I would never practice that because I just don't have the time or the means. And then we went into lockdown, and I was like,
I've got
doing
time.
This. I've got all the time in the world. So yeah, essentially I basically moved like to my parents had just moved into a house in Hertfordshire in the countryside, and I ended up moving into their spare room in lockdown, just being like, I don't have any money and I don't know if I'm going to have a job, and do you know what I mean? So go back there, and I just like completely like stopped using my phone, stopped using social media, stopped replying to emails. Like I could do that. And went into this, the Abramelin tradition, which is essentially like 3 phases where phase 1, you start to introduce the rite into your life. So it's like some meditation, some prayer, some fasting. And phase 2, we get a little bit more strict. Phase 3, we get really strict, and we're like really like there's a fast from the Bible, which is basically like it's like pulses and grain, and you're just on a really clean diet. You're meditating, you're reading up on occultism.
So all of this is to get you into a certain state, I'm guessing,
exactly,
for the ceremonial work.
For real. So for 6 months, the whole time is all this preparation.
Did you do this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so determined. I was like, I'm sick of practicing this stuff it's giving me like temporary results, because it's just focusing on temporary things of the day-to-day, which has its place. Yeah. And that's really important to me too, because I still practice that on the daily. I'm like, this is what I want to will into my life. I'm going to set that intention. But if you want some bigger results, and I mean bigger results as in like sort of spiritual advancement, more wisdom, more knowledge, inner development, not just things and people, like something in connection with the divine. I would really recommend this tradition. So, again, it's not for everyone.
What's it called again?
It's the Abramelin rites.
Abramelin rites. Wow. So how long did it take?
So I did the 6-month version.
6 months.
Some people do it for 18 months.
Wow.
I didn't know how long we were going to be in lockdown. So I was like, let's go with the 6 months. And also that was the book that I had. So I was like, let's do the 6-month one.
I mean,
that
that's
was
still
really
a
hard.
massive commitment.
Yeah,
though,
it
isn't
is.
It was really hard. It was really hard. But do you know what? Because I love ritual magic, I was in my element. I was like, I'm suffering, but I love it.
What star sign are you?
I'm a Virgo.
Oh.
So everything's very organised.
Yeah.
But I'm surrounded by... I've got 5 signs in my chart, so I'm a bit spicy. But yeah, it's like everything has, everything's in its place. So that's why I like it. Got my tools, everything's, have to keep everything clean. So yeah.
Any Aries in your sign?
Oh yes. Yes.
Same as you.
You?
Me.
Yes, yeah. And Virgo, actually.
Ah.
I'm Leo sun, Virgo rising, and Aries moon.
Oh my gosh. So my sun is Virgo. My rising's Leo and my moon's in Aries.
That is wild.
That is
That is wild.
I have literally hardly any fire in my chart. I think one sign.
That's why we
somewhere.
balance each other out, though. Like, totally. Complete water sign.
Yeah, like water and air.
I can't believe you did that for 6 months. That's amazing.
I loved
I try
every
and think
minute.
of anything someone would commit to for 6 months. That like if you're an athlete or something,
Yeah.
there aren't that many people that'll do it.
Yeah.
They're not that committed.
No.
Yeah.
What did you experience at the end of the 6 months?
I had, and I don't like sharing this, but I don't like sharing the exact experience because I want to keep that sacred.
Of course, yeah.
But the actual thing was like, I had what I think when people describe a religious experience, I feel like I had the equivalent of that. It was, yeah.
What, as in like, normally when people say they've had a religious experience, they've like seen some sort of apparition or something like that.
Yeah, so I missed the key point to this ritual, which is like you're gaining knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, like as per the film. And boy, did they make their presence known. They were like in the room with me.
Wow.
I felt them lift me up.
Oh,
and
God. I've had so many like goosebumps during this whole conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
We should probably watch that film, to be honest.
Yeah.
Together.
Maybe tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Francesca.
Yeah. What was it?
We were
You
talking about
felt
your experience.
lifted up.
Oh yes. So that they were in the room with me, and that was it. I was like, this is I've asked for magic and I've got magic.
Wow.
And were your parents just next door?
They were just downstairs.
And you were like raising up.
They were amazing. They were like so supportive. Because they kept the house like if I was like in a cabin in the woods like completely on my own, I think I would probably die. Because if I ran out of food or if something went wrong, I would just be alone with no one to contact.
Yeah.
So I think that is like the fantasy. But I think like if you're going to make this like achievable in the modern day, you kind of have to have someone there with you just in case something happens. Like they've got to be paying the bills. Like we live in the modern day. They've got to be taking care of things whilst you're, you can't go to the shops. No. You can't go out. You can't live your life in a normal way. Like you can go to the forest. I was right next to a forest, so I just like go into the forest when I needed something. I needed a bit of a grounding exercise.
Really strict.
It's
rules.
really, really strict.
Would you say that occultism practice is quite like that, like strict set of formulaic
I think there's
rules?
I think there's a lot of discipline involved, but I feel like that's what helps make you a better person. And I say better, I just mean like you have to be dedicated, you have to be committed, and because you're sort of like managing your social media use, you're managing your diet, you're exercising, you're practicing meditation. These are all things that sort of like help to like cleanse our vessels of all of this psychic noise and like all of these attachments.
Do you feel like it's quite difficult for us in this sort of period of time that we're living in this like modern age, to be a dedicated person to things?
As I was saying before, it's like it's really hard to manage.
I mean, like wow, you doing that. That's
it's even hard being dedicated to a podcast, let alone a practice.
I just think that's incredible, like, and quite inspiring.
Yeah, I agree.
Can't speak anymore. Inspiring, like, yeah.
I'm glad we spoke about that, because I would say, like, Abramelin Rite is like the first thing that any ceremonial magician should do, or anyone interested in ritual magic, because what the Holy Guardian Angel does is it engages with our higher self. It's like our inner genius. It's like the parent that we've always wanted, or like the teacher or guide that we've always, it's there. So that's like within you now, and you have access to that through this ritual. So anytime you want to gain connection with them, you can go and...
So angels are part of that then?
Big times.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought angels would be a part of occultism.
Yeah. But this is why this conversation is so important, isn't it? Because
I
don't think many people at home will know any of this stuff.
Yeah, that's insane.
So
not insane, but
that's the thing. That's about, we're going back to the symbols again, the occult symbols, the hidden meanings. It's like when you first see them, it's like, it's a pentagram, it means the devil. But then when you get into it, you're like, oh, actually, it's protection. It means earth, air, fire, water. It's then ether. It's there to protect me.
Yeah.
Or it's there to help me like conjure something. It's helpful. So that's why, we're here to like go on that journey. And it's not for everyone though.
No. It sounds like a very, very strict, dedicated way of practicing magic, I would say.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think people confuse, because my interpretation of how people view occultism is that it's kind of like snobby and like inaccessible. But actually what you're explaining is discipline. And that's a real difference there.
Yeah. And it doesn't help as well that we're calling ceremonial magic, ritual magic, and all of that stuff high magic, and all of the folky stuff, folky earthbound, like pagan stuff, we're calling that low magic. That's not fair, and that's like quite classist. But like, I guess it's helpful to know what they're referring to with those titles, so that you know what you're getting yourself into. But it is classist because, essentially the lower magic is folk magic. It's the stuff that, like, some people might not have had access to all of the grander stuff unless they had like a degree from Oxford, which is, or Cambridge, which is, explains half of the Golden Dawn. They were very privileged. Some
or the
not.
fact that you can, you need someone to essentially pay the bills and everything, so that you can dedicate yourself to that practice.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to say
that was quite an unusual circumstance that you found yourself in.
Right?
Is would have the old occultists have been those people of privilege? Like,
some yes, some no. And I don't think we should discredit someone just because they have come from like an affluent background. It's just good to like sort of like acknowledge.
It's just interesting because we're trying to like place all the different like folk magic.
Yeah.
I guess it seems like it was more everyday people that would have practiced the folk magic, and then
I think
maybe high ceremonial magic would
like
been...
in the UK it probably was privileged people.
Yeah,
I think probably in other cultures it wasn't necessarily just like wealthy white people.
But that's why I'm really glad that you've asked us to talk about occultism today, because it covers everything. I think a lot of occultists aren't just one thing.
No,
a lot of people I know are pagans, will meet up at Stonehenge on the summer solstice, but they're also practicing other things as well. And I've never met someone who's like, I've met like one person who's practicing exactly the same things as me. Like everyone's completely different. It's like, everyone's got their own unique belief systems, and that's what makes it really interesting. Yeah,
definitely. Everyone's quite diverse in the way that they practice magic, really. And that's what makes these sort of conversations so interesting. What I was going to ask you is, obviously we've spoken a lot about Aleister Crowley. Is it Crowley or Crowley?
Crowley.
Aleister Crowley.
Crowley. Because he, I guess, was kind of the one that kind of made it more popular. But you also mentioned there's others. Do you know anything about any of the other occultists?
So there's W.B. Yeats. There
one of my favourites.
Well, it's hard. Would you like to share a bit about what you know about W.B. Yeats?
Oh, well, all I was going to say is about the writing, really. I'm just really connect with the writing. There's not much more.
Awesome.
Not much more to share,
Yeah, because I connect with him, but I don't know like loads about him. But I know that, you know, he's interpreted a few texts, which has been quite helpful. Also, Samuel Liddell Mathers, he interpreted the Key of Solomon, and Solomonic magic is like a huge part of my practice as well. So yes, he's been very important too. He actually left the Golden Dawn after a good few years, and I think he ended up becoming a Buddhist at the end, which is interesting. And I'm very open to me just going, oh, I'm fed up with the tools, so much work, I'm just going to go into meditation.
Yeah.
I'm open to that as well. Like, I think our practice should just keep evolving. Otherwise, are we still going to get results? Like, if we're just doing the same thing over and over again?
Well, we're evolving all the time, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, like our practice has changed.
Learning.
It is always changing, actually.
Yeah.
It's always the new doors are opening, more revelations. It's I mean, I think I would identify a bit as an occultist as well. I think there's definite crossover for me. Crossover. We've gone a bit doolally in the heat.
The words are not wording. Yeah, the words are not wording. It's really interesting, actually. And is there any women occultists?
For sure, there is Diane Fortune, who wrote Moon Magic. Some of her writing is quite, I think it's a sign of the times. Some of her like thoughts, but the work she's made is very important for magic. And actually, a lot of people have said, and I've found this to be true too, that some of her like most golden moments are within her fiction books, because she wrote stories. But then she also wrote magical texts as well. And actually, like stories, I feel like they're kind of a bit easier to like to find truths in there.
Yeah.
I think because of the written language from some of these like Victorian books it's quite hard to sometimes like feel connected to that language.
Sometimes they're quite difficult to read. Yeah. Do you, if it's not too personal, just to kind of like really get to the foundations of it, really get in there, you know, what could everyday practice look like for an occultist, you know, occultist / witchcraft? Yeah, because I think that people, when they tend to like connect with us and our witchcraft, it's when they see us doing ceremonial work and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that that's what ceremony could look like in a witchcraft practice. That's the same question for you.
So, I guess it could be as basic as, well, you know how we can get into the flow, right? I've just been working with magical flow at the moment, and that's just like you breathe, inhale and exhale, and you can sort of like get into a rhythm, you can get into a flow, and you feel that connection, and you're like, oh, I feel in alignment with the ether. And it's just a really simple technique of like, you can breathe or you can chant, like Om is a really good way to get in the flow. You just get into a sort of frequency. In sound
healing, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. In sound healing.
There's a lot of crossover with a lot of these practices.
Exactly, for sure. So you can really like sort of connect, and I've been connecting to this like magical flow. I'm sure there's like other names for it, but I've been connecting to that before I've been going into ritual, and actually like it's amplified the whole thing by 10. But also I've just been practicing that just on a bus or like you know, going somewhere to meet a friend or something. If I just feel like maybe the conversation has gone slightly off, I'll just like go back to the breath again, get back into the magical flow. That's a ritual in itself. It could be something really small. I would say that I'm practicing folk magic a lot more in a way than ceremonial magic, because it's a lot shorter and impulsive, and that's why I like it. So I can just be like, oh, I feel like, you know,
putting someone in a jar. That's the second time I've said that today.
I'm a little bit worried I'm going to get put in a jar soon.
Don't fuck with me.
Exactly.
That is probably impulsive though, isn't it? You know, like if you're acting on a big emotion.
Yeah. And that's why working with our HGAs, our Holy Guardian Angels, is really important, because it helps us to balance ourselves. We're not going to, if we connect to that daemon, the holy daemon we call them, not demon, holy daemon. And when we were able to connect with them, it helps us find like a sort of more balanced viewpoint. We're not going to be like hexing someone left, right and centre. We'll be like thinking about, you know, we'll get, there's a place, you know, just it's all about
No shade to the hexers.
No shade at all. It's just that the HGA helps you think a bit more rationally.
Right.
It's like the inner parent. I think in life, like, we think smothering ourselves with self-love is the way forward. I don't necessarily believe that. I think it's more working with our intuition, learning to work with our inner guide, learning to work with consciousness. Those are like the parental sort of like voices within us. HGA helps bring those out big time. So
I feel like that was just really profound what you just said there for me. Like that really just like punched me in the chest. But it did. Literally like that. Tugged on my heartstrings.
Wow, I never talk about this stuff with anyone. So it's just to share this experience with you. It's so beautiful. I'm just usually alone, or like I talk to my friends, but they're like going through a similar thing, so they're just like, you know, not really. It's nice to share it. Do you have any
like friends that you practice with?
So I've got like a few little like groups that I do like various things with. Nothing's like as organised as my solo stuff. This is like where we all come together. We've all got our own practices. I work with some chaos magicians. I work with some people who call themselves occultists. I've actually got a friend who's a Satanist as well. It's, you know, it's all sides of the same coin, I would say. But yeah, we meet up and like make, because I'm an artist, so meet up and make art. That's like one of the things that gets us out of bed and working as a group.
The purpose of life, isn't it? To make art, exactly. In my opinion.
For sure. Yeah.
Do you know anything more about the Golden Dawn and kind of the way they practice?
Yeah, I'm not like a huge expert, but I know that they were around in the late 1800s, and key people like Samuel Liddell Mathers, who interpreted the Key of Solomon. That's a really important text. Aleister Crowley was part of it at one point. W.B. Yeats. Also, Moyna Mathers, she was a suffragette, and also she was an artist, painter. And I think she may have been, I'm not sure if she came from an affluent background, but she was there. There was quite a few. It was mixed, because I believe the Golden Dawn, as soon as they had their cloaks on, they were all the same. I don't think there was any shade. I think they were all practicing a similar thing. Yeah. Even if like outside of those ceremonies, there was a bit of like misogyny and like classism. I think like once they all had the cloaks on, they were all in it.
Yeah. So interesting. You mentioned the Key of Solomon. Is that a religious text?
It's a sacred text. And yeah, maybe it was. I think there is a church in Canterbury where they found there was like students who were like training to be priests were actually like, they found that they were practicing magic. I'm describing this really badly, but there's a book out at the moment that talks about this. I can't remember the name of it. But there's evidence that they were practicing magic in their sort of like line up to becoming like, you know, a priest. They were dabbling in it.
Yeah.
Because
it's really so cool. That sounds like something you should look into.
Yeah, definitely.
From what you were saying before, I think Christianity plays a huge part in ceremonial magic. Big time.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of crossover, especially with Catholicism. Yeah. I mean, like, you only have to go into the churches to just see, like, you know, the symbolism, the frankincense and everything. It's
and
just
the clothing, the ceremonial clothing.
It's so gothic.
It's so gothic.
That's why the goths love it. That's why we like to go in.
We just flock in there.
I love that I'm still referring to myself as a goth, even though I've started wearing colour recently.
It's okay.
I'm changing. I'm a change. Yeah,
it's
I'm a goth at heart. It is. I'm moving with the seasons.
But yeah, there's a big crossover between magic and Christianity.
Just that I just find it really like fascinating to draw all the different connections from everything. Yeah,
you're like
Christianity.
Your religious ancestor, your culture. You know, you have ancient temples that are like the same age as the Egyptian pyramids, right? That's something that you said. So it's clearly intertwined. You know, the fact that you had these big ships that had like the Eye of Osiris on the front, and you know,
there's a lot of Egyptian symbols.
Wow. But isn't the Hypogeum, like the age of it, similar to the pyramids?
Yeah.
Or does it predate? It was something like that.
I don't think it does. So the oldest temple is the Gantia temple, which is on the island of Gozo. I'm pretty sure that's the oldest one, which is older than the Egyptian pyramids. But then the Hypogeum has got a room that resonates at like 111 hertz or something like that. So they obviously did a lot of ceremonial work in there. But basically they used to worship the mother goddess, which there's connections with obviously Mary coming in with Catholicism. There's the connections there.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fascinating to draw all these different connections and how things have evolved.
And they were probably all sort of happening at the same time as well.
Yeah.
A lot of these major religions and practices. I mean, we've just done this sound healing certification.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really loving it. It's really bringing it into our witchcraft as well, you know, and finding our own specific offering. But, you know, our culture here is so not used to hearing sound in a healing capacity, you know, whereas it's been happening in Nepal for like Nepal. This is in Nepal. I don't know what happened. Nepal, mate. In Nepal for like, you know, centuries.
Well, you know, even when I feel really connected to the Himalayan bowls, and they just remind me of church bells. So I grew up going to Gozo every year, and there's something really connecting for me about listening to a Himalayan bowl.
Didn't I tell you about that? I think I sent it to you, but there was that article that I found where there was an archaeological dig and they'd found all of these bells underground, these huge, like the size of this table, huge bells, and they've been buried underground, and there was speculation that it was something to do with sound healing.
Wow, yeah.
Or like, you know, some kind of like religious or ceremonial practice to do with sound healing.
There's definitely something to learn from these ancient cultures.
The Nepal bowl.
I was going to say ancient cultures that lived on the lands before they got invaded.
All that.
It's truly fascinating.
I think we could honestly just talk to you for hours.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
you're
likewise.
Yeah,
likewise.
So fascinating. Questions? More questions?
I don't know. Like my questions have died because we've been going so long. So I don't know. I don't even know how long we've been talking for now.
I could add on to the last thing that I was talking about.
Yeah, please do.
And just let me know when you want to end this. I mean, exactly. We could
never,
talk about this.
Never. We love you, Francesca.
You're gonna have to come back, I think, for round 2.
Anytime, honestly. I've got plenty of time. Aside from doing these long ritual
6-month rituals. Love it.
See you in the next year. But yeah, I think the last thing I was saying was just about like, you know, the universe like opening itself up to you once you learn how to like interpret the symbols. Yeah. And it actually, the more you go on your journey, the more you kind of have those revelations of, oh, that's what that also means. You know, you just go on this endless journey of being able to find different interpretations for those symbols, and it's just that one symbol. So it's incredibly like fascinating to me that one thing can mean so many different other things depending on where we're at in our journey. But as it opens, the universe opens up to you, your subconscious mind is working in this more alchemical fashion, and you're sort of like developing your sort of like spiritually advancing. This is where we start to notice like synchronicities and like this natural harmony, like everything kind of like working out, and you'll be, you know, you'll be in the car and you get a text going, go to these studios, and you're like driving past the studios, you didn't even know that they were there, you know, things like that. And like, just like maybe like a sort of like metaphysical experience, you know, that's when they really open up to you. And I kind of see that as like, you know, when you sort of like make love to someone, you like learn the code of like how their body works. You like enter the code in a really crude fashion, but it like they begin to sort of like open up and flourish, you know, and you really feel that moment of surrender, the two of you, and then you like experience this sense of like, you know, unity and bliss, and it's and that sexual energy is like the reason why we're here. It's like, that is like the spark, that's the lightning bolt, like in the Kabbalistic cross. That's the thing that ignites the whole thing, all the way down to Malkuth. And that's the ground. So it's also really important that we're like grounding and protecting ourselves as well. Because we need to earth the whole thing. It's just like a sort of electrical wiring. If we're not earthing that, the whole thing just up in flames, So Diane Fortune, she's written a book called Psychic Self-Defense, and that is like a really good reference point for learning tricks on how to sort of just protect yourself in
I think I've read it. It's amazing.
It's a really good book. It's like eating, if you're under psychic attack, eating loads of carbs before you go to bed, like just like simple things. There's also some like less simple things to do, but like if you've just invoked a spirit and they're not friendly, and you've been in in a graveyard or something like that, to take a route home that you don't usually take, so then it can't follow you, almost like getting a little bit lost and then going home, so you're not bringing it with you.
Right.
You sort of like shake it off. Yeah. And then come back and actually, I think some of those tips do work.
Shake that spooky ghost off. Yeah. on your wonky walk.
Well, it's even like when you go into a graveyard, making sure that you say, please don't follow me home. Stuff like that.
And that is such an easy boundary to make. It's like, please don't stalk me. Thank you.
And closing the gate.
Don't communicate with me right now because I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
Goodbye. I don't want to communicate with you right now.
Yeah.
I had a really long period of psychic attack when I moved into my new house, and one night I actually punched myself in the face. It was like my whole body had been taken over by something else, and I literally hit myself in the face, blood everywhere, and I was like, I think I sent you the picture, like, cause I was like covered in blood.
I remember you
I literally had no control over my own body, but I've had issues all through my life with sleep paralysis, having the sort of like the hag on the chest feeling.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's really scary.
I've never experienced it before, but it's kind of like my worst fear of like not being able to escape a force.
It's like something's jumped into your body and it suddenly has control over your limbs, and you're witness to what's going on, but you can't do anything. And I had that proper like house on haunting on the Hill House. What's it called? The Haunting on Hill House. Thank you, Shirley Jackson. Where in the series she kind of like turns to her partner and she's making that awful sound, but she can't talk to him. That happened with my husband. I was literally like, and he was like, what the hell? And I literally just couldn't move. I was desperately trying to move my arms and my legs, and I couldn't. I went through this really long period of it in the house, and then the energy settled and it went away. But I remember it so vividly from being a child, and just being lying in bed and having the room warp around me, like the wallpaper move, and like spiders coming down, and feeling like I was in a maze. It's a really terrifying feeling. Yeah, that's probably at the root of some of my trauma is my issues with sleep and psychic attack. But as I've got older, I've got better at grounding and better at boundaries and protecting myself. I think I even did a protection workshop, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
In the first year, because there was so much to talk about. I could barely even fit it in. So it's probably one of the fundamental foundations of getting into this type of work, is learning how to protect yourself, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Well, as soon as we're talking about protection, what are the risks involved in practicing this sort of...
Well, I'll get into the real nitty gritty now.
What are the risks?
Give me those risks.
Involved in practicing this sort of like occultism, magic.
I think madness is
okay. Well, like psychosis.
Yeah. But I think you could just stray quite far from your axis, kind of thing, and get caught up in your own sort of like delusions, or like it could trigger like a mental health issue. You don't actually know what's going to happen. You're stepping into the unknown. You're creating chaos, or like you're creating and invoking a big change deliberately, but you don't know how it's going to turn out.
How it will affect you. Yeah. So that's quite a big risk to take, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be risky. It depends what you're doing, but
which is, I suppose, that's why it's so important to protect yourself.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, exactly. That is like number one, actually. Grounding and protection, for sure. Risks, I would say,
that's probably the main one.
Those are big ones.
Psychic attack, and
but that can happen through anything. You could be like cycling and, you know, something could happen to you. So that's why I don't let it stop me from doing what I want to do. If I really loved cycling, I wouldn't let the fact that a car could knock me over, or, you know, I could fly off the bike, you know, I wouldn't let that stop me from cycling.
Yeah, it was a really good point.
But yeah, the boundaries thing is really important, because you don't want some entity to sort of like hijack you. But yeah.
What about other practitioners, you know, that might be not mentally very well? Because I think that you get a lot of wounded people in this work.
For sure.
They can get very unhealthy attachments to people.
Yeah.
How do you stay boundaried with those people?
It's quite hard, because they're working in a sort of, you know, we're manipulating the forces, so that they can be quite manipulating. You know, they can be like, if they're a medium and psychic, but they're also a magician, they can like tap into like some of your like weaknesses and like play on that, and then you know they could really harm people. I've met people who are like that, and yeah, it's a shame. I know why they're doing it as well, because of their childhood trauma to do with their mums and their dads when they were really young, not being loved. We just have to like keep our heads down and move away as far as possible. Keep ourselves grounded and protected. I think it's really important, if you're an out witch, people know you're practicing stuff. If they're getting a moment of like rage or jealousy or whatever to do with what you're doing, they might just throw something your way. I wouldn't put it past them if they've got that in them. So it's really good that like, you know, you're regularly practicing like uncrossing rituals, which is, you know, undoing those harmful attacks on you. You know, you're just protecting yourself.
What would an uncrossing ritual look like?
Yeah, because I think I need one right now. I've got some bad energy coming my way.
So
you guys are laughing, but I'm like having so many accidents at the moment. It's not normal for me. I've been hurt nearly every day for the last week, and that's not. So I'm convinced someone is sending me some bad energy. So yeah, tell me, please.
Also, I think black tourmaline, it works, but it takes its like, you have to work with it for a long time, like not a long time, but like obsidian I think kicks in immediately, but tourmaline takes a while. So you've got both.
Yeah.
You've got both.
I do like obsidian.
I would
I've
say
got them both on at the moment. They're kind of a good.
They're a good combo. The winning combo. So yeah, I guess like there's like a hoodoo uncrossing you could do, and it's where you have like crossed incense sticks and a candle, and you can say a little prayer like asking for this to be like released. It's like a really simple thing that you can do. There's different ways you can do it. You can find one that like resonates with you just online. But the uncrossing is important if you're like practicing those. I would say like once a week, especially if you're doing this podcast, right? So you're like out there. I'm sure you've got a really lovely audience.
Not always,
but you might get the odd,
mostly.
And we're talking about as well about mental health, and if you're not in a good place, but you also have these skills, you might start doing things that you may later regret, kind of thing. So it's just good that we're like, uncrossing ourselves.
For sure. Totally. Sorry, my brain just went goodbye.
You're thinking about too many things now.
I have so many questions to ask you. Which one do we do first? How do you think I don't know if we've touched on this already, but
what are you doing to your head right now? Are you okay?
I'm in crisis.
She's putting it back together again.
So many questions. What do I do?
How do you think the occult is typically portrayed in the media, and do you think that's kind of an accurate representation of the occult, or not really?
I think it is and it's not. It just depends. It depends on the person, I guess. But I like in a way that it's this like this hidden, maybe they're attaching like sort of like some negative satanic connotations to it in a way, because then it means like
it's got real don't fuck with me energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's got don't fuck with me energy. It's just like, you know, it's a boundary.
Is Satanism inherently negative? Is it?
Not necessarily.
No.
Sorry, I don't think so. I don't mean to be like, no. I don't think it is.
Defensive.
You're protecting all the Satanists out there.
Yeah. Well, I think Satanism, they don't worship Satan. Satan wasn't a character to them. Satan only exists within
Christianity.
Yeah. So it's like the rebellion against the patriarchal religion.
Yeah, and also the Satan could be Pan, who is the goat god of fertility, you know, and abundance. You know, pagans celebrate him like when they go to stone circles, you know.
We were talking about Pan earlier because of Hereditary.
Oh, I love that film.
So good.
Oh,
another one to watch.
Yeah.
No, we chatted about it earlier. You guys haven't watched it yet. We're gonna have a little movie session tonight, probably. Spooky movie session. But, you know, we were talking about. Have you read the book Satanic Feminism?
No, that is on my to read list, because I did go to the lecture at Treadwell's.
Yes, I also went to the lecture as well.
So I've been meaning to actually read it, but please share.
It's really good, but it's very intellectual. So for me, it was quite a hard read, but I found the lecture really good. But just the idea of women adopting Satanism as a sort of way to rebel against, you know, just basically against patriarchal religion, you know, and using their sexuality for like independence and liberation. And I'm just like, yes. For me, the whole idea of Satanism is very freeing. You know, I think it's a really beautiful thing. I just think it's got a bit of a badass name.
And that, well, also I think it's probably the way that it's all portrayed in movies and stuff like that. People instantly have come to their own conclusion that it's all about loads of evil.
Well, no, there's that really good documentary on Netflix now about the
which is harmful, right?
Yeah. I think I saw.
And they're basically just fundraise loads of money to go against the church and across the Christian belt in America, because they're just kind of like it's so in the law there. I mean, it's in our law here as well, in our law system, but it's so prevalent over there of an issue, you know, where they're taking away women's rights and stuff like that they're just trying to always like have enough money to take them to court and to fight for people to have the right to believe whatever they want. I'm not really just explaining this very well, but it's a good documentary, you know, even if there are interesting characters.
Yeah. I think it was Ronald Hutton actually created
Hutton,
I know,
so
Bristol based.
Is he?
Yeah. So he ran like some statistics. I don't know how they did this, but anyway, he gathered the numbers of people actually practicing Satanism, and he found that I think it was like only 20% were practicing it in a sort of dark way. The rest of them were practicing it as anti-establishment, as like a punk rock, like don't mess with us thing.
I would have loved to have seen that survey. I don't know about you. Where did they send it?
I think it's in his book. It might be in Witch. It may be in Witch. He's written so many books. I think it's that one. But only 20% were practicing like it in a sort of like dark fashion, or actually worshipping Satan. And I think it's something like 2% were actually using it in a malevolent way. So
really?
They've got a rep for a reason, because it's like, let's mess with the church, because it has so much power over the whole world. A bit less so, but still, it's like, anything that's not Christian is deemed as something satanic in a way. So
it's true, actually.
I love what they're doing.
I love it too.
What do you think? What do you think the biggest misconception about occultism is?
I feel like we've covered that. That is just like everyone thinking that it's Satanism or if it's evil.
But it is a bit. So it's like.
I kind of want to touch on the sex magic stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because I'm ovulating and I'm really spicy right now, but like I just I kind of like I just think it's really interesting, like how big that whole movement was, you know, and why people got into sex magic and like that kind of like sex ceremonial work. Like, is that still a thing? Are people still, do you know if that's a thing or?
Yeah, I think like it's a big practice for occultists because it's, well, occultists love sex. So of course they'll be like trying to practice magic in everything that they do. And it's such a, just before you like completely climax, that is such a magical point because you're like completely like connected to the divine. So it's like, if you can get really clear about your intentions in that moment, like, and then send that off when you climax, it's just like sending like a torpedo out into the universe.
Pew, pew, pew. That's going to be my like visual now. This is how I set my intentions. This is how I manifest.
I think I just quoted like a Spinal Tap song.
It's just interesting because I've always, even without reading that anywhere, I've always thought the closest that you could ever be to the divine is just as you're orgasming.
Exactly.
I've always thought that, and no one's ever said it before. And it's just so interesting that Christianity is the opposite of that. It's very Puritan,
I know.
you know, kind of like you must not ever have sex. You cannot look at any other person ever.
Yeah.
Well, did you know that I've been reading recently that virgin doesn't actually mean what we think it means today.
Go on.
It meant
colour me intrigued.
It meant like a sort of like a woman standing independently, kind of.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
We
like
have missold this for a long time.
Like, it was. This is what I've read anyway. That it was translated in that way because of obviously the church's goal in what they were preaching.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, it's really interesting that, you know, because I've been obviously reading about Mary being part of this ancient priestess, like priestesses of Isis, basically.
Like the Vestals. Is that what they were called?
Yeah,
like veiled Vestals.
Yeah, I think so.
They like lock them away,
and
not lock
that
them away.
She was actually practicing magic, and she practiced a lot of womb magic. So very interesting.
Yeah, it's just really interesting how with all of these like very Catholic religions, you know, from different countries, how they used to have these like virgins to like slaughter before like something important happened, or you know, they'd lock them away in a tower and they would be like the virgins for Apollo, or you know, whatever. And actually, in order for them to actually get any closer to the divine, they would have needed to have sex. It's just like, those poor women. Although they can on their own.
I learned a really good technique from Sarah Janes, who does a lot of dream work. I don't dream very often. I just go into darkness. It might be because I don't remember it, but I just don't dream. I don't remember my dreams. But she gave a really good tip. When you start lucid dreaming, well, a lot of the sort of lucid dream like herbs you can take, the tea you can take, they're actually aphrodisiacs because it's that sex energy.
What, like mugwort or
mugwort? Yeah, and there's like Greek mountain tea. I think Sarah uses that a lot.
I have that at home.
Yeah, that's quite potent.
Not here, don't worry.
And we sell mugwort here in the Haunted Bookshop.
I have seen.
Little plug. But it's the sort of sexuality that sort of like wakes you up in your dream. It's like that. Yeah, that little spark, you know, that just sort of wakes you up and
have crazy dreams.
So do I. Yeah.
I literally had a dream last night that I was being chased by a dragon.
The dragon followed you from Burley.
Yeah. There's an interesting context around that.
So yeah, I literally have crazy dreams, and I remember them all vividly. So like most of the time I can recite all my dreams. I don't even need to write them down.
What do you do with them?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't pick them apart and like look at your old trauma?
What do you mean you don't do this? Sometimes I will analyse them, but what I'm really keen to do is start lucid dreaming more and meeting my ancestors in my dreams, which I have done. But annoyingly, my grandma said that she wouldn't let me ask her any questions, and I was like, "Damn it! This is like the first time that you've come,
so
and now I can't ask you anything."
So you know, I rarely dream, right? When I do, it's like what do I even do with this? So I'm trying to practice the dream incubation so that I can work with King Solomon, or I was trying to invoke John Dee so I could have a chat with him because I was about to put on a performance where I was like embodying him and channeling him. So I was like trying to bring both of those guys in. But instead, who came through in a lucid dream during that period was George Harrison.
Why?
And I'm like a huge Beatles fan. He's my favourite Beatle. So it was like full-on Beatle mania in my lucid dream. He came to me and his stubble was so... I could literally see the stubble on his face. I could count the stubble in his face. That's how clear this lucid dream was.
Wow.
But I just started crying because that's what Beatles fans do. They cry hysterically when they see a Beatle. So I was crying and he was going, oh my God. I was like, oh no, he was like, no, please don't cry. Please don't cry. Oh, I hate it when this happens. We could have gone to Spain together. I could have asked him about his, what the meaning of the universe was.
Yeah.
Instead, I cried hysterically and then I woke myself up. He was in a panic because he was like, what do I do? I've got this crying girl. I guess I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah.
Then I wake up and I'm sobbing in real life. I've got anyway, that was like dream fail.
That's funny that you mentioned stubble though, because when I saw my granddad in a dream, that is one of the main things that I remember. And I remember giving him a hug and a kiss on the cheek and feeling his stubble on my cheek, and it was so realistic, and I could smell his Old Spice. It's just really it was wild. And I woke up crying as well. Not for the same reason. I'm not like... But yeah, I just
I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah, I mean, I am.
Yeah,
to be fair,
exactly.
It was just so realistic, and I could just he was there. He was definitely there. I could feel his presence completely.
Man, that sounds like an awesome dream.
It was awesome. I love dream communion. It's like one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I feel like we should start going on like
dream work.
We should do like a couple of weeks where we drink mugwort tea every night before bed, and then we try and recall our dreams.
That would be amazing.
And then we analyse them, because that's what I like to do.
Just start an analysing circle.
I have a journal. Analysing circle.
For someone who's curious about occultism, but maybe feeling a bit unsure of where to start, what's a kind of safe entry way for them to kind of look more into it?
I would say Wicca is a really nice entry point. It's like a nice little, it's like in the middle, like it's a bit pagan, but it's also like a bit, it's like linked to Thelema.
Is it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put Wicca under the occultism umbrella.
I think
they used to
nice
hang out, didn't they? All of that lot. That's not really what you... They used to commune.
So yeah, that's really interesting that you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, safe practice, I think.
Yeah.
I think there are like spirits involved, but I think it's...
If someone wanted to go a little bit more deeper into it and start...
All right, Steph.
Not me. What would you say is a sort of, I don't know, maybe like a book that they may want to read or something like that?
Ooh, that's a really good question. But as I was saying, the Magick in Theory and Practice by
you said that earlier, yeah.
I'm not a Thelemite. I just would recommend that book. I don't think you even have to like him. It's just like got a good foundation in there. I've mentioned a few of the ones that I really like. Do you know what? I love the Book of Psalms. Predates Christianity. It's not part of any religion, but it got like very much like roped into... but you can find like some real healing in those words. It helps you connect to the divine, but also to understand the lower worlds as well. But I guess something a bit more approachable. It depends what path you want to go down. I would say like Marco Visconti has written a book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a really good entry point to Thelema. But he's a good person to look at.
What about the it's definitely not entry point, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it the Goetia or the
Goetia?
Goetia.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was Gracia, and then someone said Goetia, and I was like,
that stuck
with me.
Goetia.
Goetia.
Yeah.
Was it Nigella Lawson?
No, it's actually a friend of ours that has it as part of her business name. So I really, yeah.
Oh, maybe that is how you're supposed to pronounce it. I don't know.
I don't know either. We're none the wiser. Someone help. But because that's a really interesting.
Yeah, I would say that's advanced. Yeah, I would say that's advanced.
Is that the spooky shit?
Yeah,
because that's the like gods, isn't it?
Yeah, you're. I guess the demons working. Don't be scared of the word demon because it's part of that universal language thing. Again, we're using that word because we understand what we're doing. But a lot of the sort of like pagan gods were like deemed demons.
Deemed demons.
Yeah, deemed demons. And that was just the way that, you know.
Maybe it's not even a bad word.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
I think it's just got connotations because of, I guess, horror films, which I love. But yeah, it's just things have got connotations, and then so yeah, I would say that Goetia is more of an advanced practice. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm just trying to think of something a bit more accessible. But I would say the Abramelin is like. Of course I would say that. But it is, I would say, a foundation point for ceremonial magic, even if you just owned the book and started reading it. And I would say as well to just like cut out the middlemen, start collecting sacred texts, like try to get as close to the source as possible, and just start reading them, like Tibetan Book of the Dead. Like just start reading them, and I think you can find some real golden nuggets inside all of them.
The sacred texts thing is really interesting.
Yeah.
There's is it Dead Sea
Scrolls?
Yeah.
I really love the Greek magical papyri as well, and that's working with like Egyptian magic.
Ooh, I might like that. Yeah. Did you see how I spark up when you said that? Ding.
But yeah.
I think you've probably come to the end of our episode because we probably could just keep talking to you forever.
Oh,
and I
think
let's leave some room for you potentially to have another conversation with us another time.
I will be hosting a talk here soon, so I guess I could just expand on this. Just, you know, if anyone wanted to like learn more, we could have a chat inside the Haunted Bookshop.
Yeah.
When is that?
Monica keeps pressurizing me. Soon.
Could you share your Instagram maybe?
Yeah,
or something?
It'll be on Instagram for sure. But yeah, in the next couple of months.
And your Instagram is?
Francesca_way_LVX, which is light in Latin.
Awesome. We'll tag you under the YouTube video anyway. So hopefully if you're interested in coming to the talk, you can. Thank you so much for joining us, Francesca. It's been a freaking delight talking to you. I feel like we've both gone away with much to look into.
Likewise, I'm learning as you guys are learning. This is like beautiful. We shared this experience together, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely be asking you back. And so thank you for joining us for this very special episode again on the road in Bristol at the Haunted Bookshop. And if you've liked this episode, please like and subscribe. It helps us so much, doesn't it, to grow and to reach new audiences. And yeah, we'll be with you very soon.